It all started with a guitar. I still remember the moment like it was yesterday, walking into that small local music shop, my heart pounding in my chest. I wasn't sure why I was so nervous. After all, it was just a lesson, right? But there I was, feeling like a kid on the first day of school, unsure of what to expect but excited all the same. I had always loved music, always, but I had never had the courage to pick up an instrument. It had always felt like something other people did, something I could admire from afar. But today was different. Today I was going to change that. My fingers itched to hold the guitar, and even though I felt a little out of place, there was this tiny spark of hope inside me. Maybe this was the start of something new. And then I saw her. Laura. She was sitting there, strumming her guitar like it was an extension of herself, her fingers moving with such ease, making it look effortless. I couldn't help but stare, mesmerized by the way she seemed to make music flow from her without even trying. I felt this instant pull towards her. Something about the way she laughed, the way her eyes lit up when she spoke, made me feel like I'd known her for years. But at the same time, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was in over my head. Here I was, fumbling with the strings, struggling to even play a chord, while she played like she'd been born with a guitar in her hands. It was humbling, but it also made me want to get better. I wanted to impress her, to be able to play as effortlessly as she did. Little did I know, that moment would be the start of something that would change my life forever. After class one day, she walked up to me with that same warm smile. "Hey, I'm Laura," she said, her voice light and friendly. "You seem to be struggling a bit with those chords. Want to grab a coffee? I can show you a few tricks." How could I say no? We ended up talking for hours, and it was there, sitting across from her in that little cafe, that I realized just how much I wanted to learn. Not just about the guitar, but about her. We started meeting up before our classes, practicing together. She guided my fingers on the fretboard, and every time her hand brushed against mine, I felt a spark. It was subtle, but it was there, this electric charge, like something inside me was waking up. At first, I tried to ignore it, focusing on the chords and trying not to make a fool of myself, but the more time we spent together, the harder it became to push away that growing attraction. It was like we were building something, note by note, even though I wasn't sure what it was yet. It was one of those nights when I couldn't get the music out of my head. I had written a song, a simple one, nothing spectacular, but it felt like it was meant for her. I had been practicing it in secret for weeks, too nervous to play it for anyone. But that night, something inside me told me it was time. I remember sitting across from her, my hands trembling slightly as I started to play. The chords felt clumsy under my fingers, but I kept going, pouring every ounce of feeling into the song. I stumbled through the words, but when I finished, she was just staring at me. There was a long silence, and then she leaned in and kissed me. It was soft at first, but then it deepened, and in that moment, I swear, every love song I'd ever heard made sense. I could feel my heart race, my chest tightening with something I couldn't name. It was as if everything, every emotion I'd kept hidden, every thought about her, was suddenly laid bare. The world faded around us, and for the first time in a long while, I felt completely alive. It all felt so fast looking back. 6 months had passed in what felt like the blink of an eye, and suddenly, everything had changed. I had gone from being a nervous beginner, struggling with chords, to playing on stage with Laura by my side, our music a constant thread between us. It was more than just the guitar now, it was her, it was us. I couldn't imagine my life without her. So, I decided I wasn't going to wait any longer. After one of our performances, right there on stage with the guitar still strapped to my back, I dropped to one knee. The lights were dim, but I could see her face clearly, her eyes wide with surprise. The audience erupted in cheers, but all I could hear was my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I asked her to marry me, and when she said yes, the whole room seemed to shake with the excitement, with the energy of something so real, so right. In that moment, I knew, this was it. We were creating our own story together. 6 years of marriage, and I thought I knew everything about her. We had built a life together, full of music, laughter, and love. But then, one Tuesday, everything shattered. I was home early from work, thinking I'd surprise Laura by cooking dinner. Her laptop was sitting on the coffee table, so I opened it, just to grab a recipe I'd saved. That's when I saw it. The WhatsApp web app popped up on the screen. At first, I didn't think much of it, but then I saw the name Tony. Tony, one of my closest friends. My heart stopped. The message preview was enough to send a chill through my spine. Last night was amazing, babe. Can't wait to see you again. I didn't want to believe it. My hands were shaking as I scrolled up the conversation, reading messages, explicit, intimate details. She'd been seeing him and others for months. 2 years of lies, 2 years of betrayal, and I hadn't seen any of it. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of it, but I couldn't. How had I missed this? How had she been able to hide it all this time? My whole world felt like it was falling apart. When she walked in, everything changed. Laura was all smiles, like nothing had happened. She leaned in to kiss me, but I flinched. I couldn't. How could I? My mind was still reeling from what I'd just discovered. She noticed the laptop, and I could see her eyes widen as she realized I knew. John, I can explain, she started, but I cut her off. Explain what, Laura? How you've been sleeping with half the town behind my back. How you've been lying to me for years. I could hear the tremor in my own voice, but I couldn't stop it. I was shaking, not just from the anger but from the sheer weight of the betrayal. She tried to deny it at first, but then I quoted the messages back to her, word for word. That's when she broke. I'm sorry, John. I never meant to hurt you. It just happened. Just happened? For 2 years? I couldn't wrap my head around it. She finally admitted it. She'd sought excitement outside the marriage because I was too predictable. Too safe. Her words felt like a punch to the gut, and for the first time, I didn't recognize the woman standing in front of me. This wasn't the Laura I'd married. She was a stranger wearing my wife's face. I left that night, stayed with Mark. I couldn't be in that house, couldn't breathe in the space where we had shared our lives, knowing it was all a lie. The divorce process was a blur, weeks of pain, anger, and confusion. Laura would alternate between begging for forgiveness and blaming me for what had happened. If you'd been more exciting, if you hadn't been so safe, she'd say. It was as if she was trying to shift the blame entirely onto me, as if my love, my loyalty, my whole being wasn't enough. And yet, in between those moments, she would cry, saying she was sorry, that she wanted to fix things. But I couldn't trust her anymore. How could I? Our life, once so full of music, now felt poisoned. The guitar we'd once shared was just a reminder of the lies, of the love that had been tainted. Every memory, every song we'd played together now felt like a cruel joke. I couldn't even listen to the music anymore without feeling that ache in my chest, the sound of betrayal filling the space where love had once lived. I remember thinking I'd never get out of this hole, this suffocating, endless cycle of pain and anger. Therapy helped, but it was still hard to face the reality of everything. How had I missed the signs? Why hadn't I seen the cracks in the foundation of our marriage? It was like waking up from a dream, only to realize the dream had been a lie all along. The first few weeks after the divorce were the hardest. I felt like I was drowning in my own emotions, but little by little, things started to shift. Therapy wasn't easy. It forced me to confront the reality of what had happened, to face the truth that I had been manipulated, that the woman I loved had torn me apart in ways I hadn't even realized. But it was necessary. Slowly, I started to rebuild myself, piece by piece. Mark was a huge part of that. He had no idea what to say or how to fix things, but he didn't need to. Just having him there, sitting with me through the silence, letting me rant or cry or just exist without judgment, made all the difference. He didn't try to tell me everything would be okay, because he knew it wasn't yet. Instead, he just reminded me that I wasn't alone, that I had the strength to get through this. It wasn't instant and it wasn't easy, but I began to find pieces of myself again, the parts that had been buried under years of self-doubt and manipulation. Facing the reality of the divorce, acknowledging the pain, was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but it also gave me a strength I didn't know I had. I wasn't the man I was before all this, but maybe that wasn't such a bad thing. Maybe I was finally starting to find who I was meant to be. It had been months since I'd picked up my guitar. Music had once been my escape, my way of expressing everything I couldn't say, but after the divorce, it felt like I had lost that part of me. The silence was deafening and I couldn't bring myself to play. But that night something shifted. I was going through some old boxes when I found my guitar, the one I'd been learning on when I first met Laura. I dusted it off and started to strum. At first, my fingers felt clumsy, out of practice, but the more I played, the more the music started to come back to me. Hours passed, and for the first time in so long, I felt free. The pain and confusion I'd carried for so long started to melt away with each note. It wasn't just about playing a song, it was about rediscovering who I was without the weight of the past on my shoulders. In that moment, I realized the divorce wasn't the end of my story. It was a turning point, a new beginning. The music had never truly left me. It had just been waiting for me to find my way back. And in that quiet, intimate moment with my guitar, I understood that I wasn't broken. I was just starting to rebuild. It had been about a year since the divorce was finalized, and I was still piecing my life back together, focusing on my music, my career, and healing from everything that had happened. The last thing on my mind was another relationship. But then Sarah walked into my life. I'd known Sarah before, of course. She was Laura's younger sister, the quiet one who had always seemed to fade into the background. I remembered her from our wedding, standing off to the side, looking uncomfortable, never quite fitting in with the rest of us. But now, months after the divorce, we ended up at the same birthday party, and something shifted. We started talking. At first, it was just small talk about the divorce, about Laura, about how everything had fallen apart. But as we spoke, something deeper began to connect us. We bonded over our shared pain, the hurt that came from loving someone who wasn't who you thought they were. It was raw, honest, and somehow, it felt like we were both finally being seen. As time passed, we started meeting for coffee more often. We talk about everything, our hopes, our fears, our love for music. It felt easy, effortless. One day, Sarah invited me to an acoustic gig she was doing at a local cafe. I had no idea she even played, but watching her on stage, pouring her heart into her music, something inside me stirred. There was a connection, an understanding in the way she played, in the way her music spoke to me. After that, we started writing songs together, creating music that felt so natural, so right. And somewhere in the middle of those late-night sessions, somewhere between the melodies and the lyrics, I realized I was falling for her. It wasn't planned, but it felt real. This wasn't about Laura anymore. It was about Sarah, about something new, something beautiful that was building between us. It was a new chapter in my life, one that felt like it was just beginning. Despite Laura's relentless attempts to tear us apart, Sarah and I refused to let her control our lives any longer. She started calling Sarah at all hours, crying, threatening, accusing her of stealing me away. At our gigs, she'd show up uninvited, trying to cause scenes, even once attempting to grab the mic from Sarah during a performance. It was exhausting, but we didn't let her win. We knew what we had was real, and we weren't going to let the past overshadow our future. We decided to move forward with our wedding plans, despite the chaos surrounding us. We chose a small, intimate ceremony, just close friends and family away from the drama. As the wedding day approached, I felt this quiet sense of peace settling in. I was marrying Sarah, the woman who had helped me heal, the one who understood me in a way no one else ever had. The day itself was everything I had hoped for. Watching Sarah walk down the aisle, radiant and beautiful, all my worries melted away. The joy I felt in that moment was overwhelming. This was it, the beginning of a new life together. Laura, for all her efforts, never showed up. Maybe she had finally realized she couldn't tear us apart, or maybe she had just given up. Either way, her absence was the best wedding gift she could have given us. As Sarah and I danced our first dance as husband and wife, I felt a deep sense of emotional resolution. It was the end of a painful chapter and the beginning of something beautiful. Our love was strong, and together we were ready for whatever came next. Years had passed, and now here I was, standing in a small music shop, watching my daughter Melody struggle with her guitar. She was just starting out, her tiny fingers fumbling with the frets, and for a moment I could see myself in her. I smiled, remembering how awkward I had felt when I first picked up a guitar, how I had struggled with each chord. Melody looked up at me, her face scrunched in concentration, and I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of pride. My life had come full circle. This little girl, this beautiful combination of Sarah and me, was now the one learning the music that had brought me so much joy and so much pain. But as I watched her, I realized something. Life, like music, isn't always perfect. It's filled with its high notes and its low notes, its harmonies and dissonances. But in the end, it's the imperfections that make it beautiful. I thought about how far I had come, how much I had grown. From the betrayal and heartbreak, to finding love again with Sarah, to this moment, where I was sharing the gift of music with my daughter. Life had changed in ways I never could have imagined, and though it hadn't always been easy, it had brought me to a place of peace. Sarah was by my side, our love stronger than ever, and Melody was growing up surrounded by music just like I had always dreamed. As I helped Melody adjust her fingers on the fretboard, I felt a quiet sense of fulfillment. The past had shaped me, but it no longer defined me. The music was back, and so was the harmony in my life.